What is going on, Bread fans? My name is Jay Insane Coaster Junkie, and welcome to another episode of Right on Track, where we are right on track for another good time. And let me tell you, I'm excited for this interview this week because, we've been doing a lot of interviews here, but I want to get a little more personal again, like I did with Gilbert221, because I got a good friend here. If you know, you know, but I am pleased to announce for this episode of Right on Track, my good friend Kat, aka Purple Shadows. Welcome.
Hello. Hello. It's really cool to be here.
Yes, sirree. So where can they find you? Because you have some really cool things to tell about yourself.
I mean, I post primarily on Instagram. My handle on there is just purple_shadows with the O in shadows being a 0, and then the end of the word shadows being a Z instead of an S. But I mostly just post my art on there, and then my YouTube channel, it's the same username. I post more so videos, obviously, on there, and that's mostly where I post my art.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, this is the first female I've interviewed on this podcast, so it's going to be really nice to have a different perspective in the community. Women in the community, even in the LGBT spectrum, they always have awesome stories, and yours is no different. And I'm very excited to give you some awesome questions regarding your journey as a coaster enthusiast, obviously. So just like every other interview I've done on Right on Track, if you're unfamiliar that a block zone is a section of track that one train may occupy, but in all seriousness, I have 10 questions for you, spanning your entirety as a coaster enthusiast. So, as they say in RF2, are you ready to ride?
Absolutely.
Oh, clear, because we're right to question one, and I ask this question to every interview me, the origin stories. How did you meet me, and how did it impact you? So let's start with the beginning.
That's actually pretty funny because, so I'd seen some of your YouTube content going back into when I first started like kind of looking at coasters and stuff a couple years ago. But then I think I found your Instagram towards like the end of 2023, and I was like, oh look, that's the Waldemir guy. I'm gonna give him a follow. And then you followed me back, and I was like, yo, that's sick. And then we just kind of started talking on Instagram. And then when the 2024 season rolled around, you were like, hey, you should come say hi. I'm working Pirates Cove. And then there you were, and you were working Pirates Cove. And so I said hi. It was pretty cool.
A very short but sweet story. And that friendship would last into now. How ironic that from fan to YouTuber to whatever went to the same alma mater. But I remember some of the memories, especially finally accepting Tiltoro as a ride.
Oh my, that was the craziest thing. It was like, I still remember, end of the night, I'm like, I'm gonna get this one in right before the rains come and stuff, and I'm sitting there, and then the rains come, and I'm like, this is gonna be a moment I remember for a very long time. I mean, honestly, it's been really cool just because, like, getting to kind of connect with more friends that I, like, share more things in common with, like coasters or specifically like a home park like Waldemir. It's just been kind of cool because it's like I get to make more friends and talk to people.
I think that's the most simple question out of all of them. I mean, yeah, if you have a common ground, go find friends in that common ground.
Exactly, because you never know what friends can turn into connections, and then you never know where that might take you, you know?
This question is very home for both of us because it involves a certain wooden coaster that goes over a 4-lane highway. You know where this is going.
I absolutely do.
Why does Ravine Flyer 2 have a special place in your heart?
Well, I really, really, really love that coaster because it's just, well, A, it's a really good ride, but like, B, obviously having grown up at Waldemir, it's like, you know, I look up at that thing, I see all the flags up at the top, I hear the ride making noise as it goes around. I'm like, man, that thing's so scary. I'm never gonna ride that thing when I get older. You'd be crazy to go and ride that. And then my friend, who is now my partner, started getting into coasters, and I'm like, you know, it'd be kind of cool if I rode one, and I could be like, hey, look, I have this thing in common with you now. And so I go to Waldemir at the end of 2023, and I'm with another one of my friends, and we both ride the coaster for the first time, and I'm like, oh my god, what have I been missing out on my whole life? And then, of course, this year, I just rode it a lot because, like, in between working a job that wasn't really all that fun for the summer, it was like, that was like my little way of just kind of chilling out in between, you know, shifts at my work, so.
Waldemir was your distraction.
It really was.
Even though it might not be the number one coaster in our rankings, it's number one in our hearts. So, we talked about our home wooden coaster. That's great and all, but I want to explore more of your enthusiast side. So, this is a good question, and I know you have a lot of stories on this, you told me at least. What are your favorite coasters outside of Waldameer, and why?
Well, my number one ranked coaster is Maverick down at Cedar Point. And that one, I still remember when I was riding it for the first time, I'm like, oh yeah, this is a solid number 2 overall. And then we hit the second launch in the tunnel, and that changed that changed everything. I don't know what that unleashed in me, but I was like, I was a monster, dude. I loved that launch, and I still do. I miss it. But that one's definitely my overall favorite, because even setting aside the launch, it's like getting whipped around in those transitions is really fun, and it has a first drop that like you get pulled over that drop even like in the front seat. Like it doesn't matter where you sit, and I think that's super cool. To be fair, I also haven't done a ton of coasters yet, so it's probably, it's time in my number one rank is limited.
So, it's time to go into the main aspect of this podcast episode, art. You are known for it.
I am. It's the only thing I really do. I'm doing art because I can't do anything else.
So I'll start simple with this one for question 4. Why did you start making art for roller coasters? What influenced you to start that?
For a long time, it's like, if I'm interested in something, like really hardcore fixated on it, I'm drawing it like all the time. And so it's like, when I started to get interested in roller coasters, I'm like, I gotta learn how to draw these things, and I gotta make characters based on them, because most of the time I'm fixated on a character, not like a hunk of wood and metal that flies around at top speeds, My partner, she had made a couple of Cedar Point characters, and I was like, that sounds like a cool idea. I should do that with the ones at my home park. And then I did, and I was like, whoa, these guys are actually really fun. And then I started writing like a story behind them and all that, which was pretty cool.
Which we'll get into the lore and whatnot, but I know your most famous character is Ravine Flyer 2.
Of course, he's my silly little guy. I still think that was a pretty cool thing to have purchased. He's just my little silly guy.
Yeah, I'll just say I can never do art for crap, because for those who don't know, I used to go to Edinburgh and I graduated with a journalism degree, but when I first started Edinburgh, I was an art major, like Kat. But I sucked at art. But what made you choose art for college then, if you liked art so much?
Well, I mean, when I think about myself in really any other career, I'm just like, I can't picture myself being happy doing something that isn't art. So it's kind of like, I gotta go all in on art, because art is what I'm like fully passionate about. I just love creating all forms of stuff. Like, I like drawing, obviously, animation. I like video editing. I like making videos, and like, I really got into graphic design in the past couple years because I went to a tech school where I learned a lot about that, and I found out that I really have a passion for like specifically kind of design and layout. So like, I like laying out kind of magazines and posters. That stuff's really interesting to me. So
flesh out like character bios and storylines.
That too, yeah. Writing, of course, that's another form of art that I like.
I mean, I do like writing, so I will give you that. I do enjoy writing a little bit. Well, yeah, we each have our own mediums of art, and art just wasn't for me, and you just picked right up.
I think I started taking art seriously when I was like 10 or 11, and I've just been like, I don't think there's been a day since I was like 11 years old that I haven't drawn at least one thing. I'm just always drawing my characters. So I've had a lot of time to really try to focus on what I'm doing and improve.
Going into your character lore, I might have mentioned it before, but what is your favorite and least favorite character designs that you have made based on coasters, and why?
I have a soft spot for Ravine Flyer 2 because that's my favorite coaster in the real world. One thing I will say is that he was like the second one that I ever made, and I guess I just really had the trains in mind when I designed him, so he's just like all red, white, and blue. I don't know, I kind of feel like I kind of wish I hadn't done that, but it's like, it's so cemented that I can't not have him look like that now, so he's just red, white, and blue forever. I do like my comic character a lot, just because there are a ton of references crammed into their design that, like, I'm surprised I even managed to make something coherent out of it. I do like my Blue Streak guy a lot for the Blue Streak from Conneaut Lake Park.
May
Rest,
it rest
in
in
peace.
peace.
He's really fun to do because he allowed me to kind of research more realistic scars and stuff. Because obviously, he survived a fire. My character, at least, can't say the same about the coaster. Either way, it's like designing all these guys, and because they're all so diverse and stuff, it just gives me a lot of opportunities to research, especially like both their rides, look into all the history, and look through a bunch of photos to make sure that I'm incorporating all of the theming aspects of the ride.
You want to stay true to the actual ride.
Exactly. Like, I don't want to. I just don't want to go do something too far gone from what the ride's original theme is. Although, on the topic of my least favorite character, I think it's probably my Whirlwind character, which is kind of funny because I have beef with that ride.
Oh.
I just don't like how my character looks. He's so weird looking. He's just like a freaky little guy.
Yeah, he's so goofy, and then it's just we both have a hatred for that damn SBF Visa coaster for pretty much obvious reasons.
I mean, I could never hate Waldemir, and at the end of the day, it's like fun little kiddie coaster for the kids to ride. I'm very much not the target demographic for that ride,
No.
so that definitely adds to it.
If there was any character that you hated and you could redesign, what character would that be?
Probably my character for Skyrocket at Kennywood. I'm really not happy with that character's design right now. I think it's kind of not to be mean, but kind of ugly looking, and like I'm not really a big fan of the colors that I used, and I could have done a better job incorporating the whole like rocket ship kind of theme. So I honestly, somewhere down the line, I might get around to redesigning that character.
The problem I see, at least with theming, is that a lot of coasters do not really incorporate theming.
They don't. I am grasping at straws with some of these characters I have. I'm like, Ravine Flyer 2 has a slogan about wings. I can work with that.
But if you just plop a coaster in a parking lot, how are you gonna work with that? The name?
You pull colors from the ride and the train, and you hope for the best.
Sometimes you just have to take creative liberties like that. Talking about creativity and characters and whatnot, what is your criteria you have it set to make a character? Like a certain personality, a certain look, a certain aesthetic, gender equality, whatever. Is it based on the ride? Is it based on something else? Like, what is your criteria in making a character?
It kind of, well, if it's for a coaster character, then, especially if it's for a coaster that I know, like, that I've ridden many times, I like to kind of incorporate stuff like, kind of the ride's quote-unquote personality, where, like, it's, for example, of course, Ravine Flyer 2, it's mentioned that it doesn't run too well in the cold, and so my character, he doesn't like the cold, and, like, the Whirlwind coaster is just an unpleasant creature, so is the character. But if I don't know the ride super well, then usually I'll lean a little bit more into just kind of, mostly just a sort of imagination of how the coaster would act in their park, especially with, like, the other characters that might live there.
Let's look at a coaster you haven't ridden yet, and I have, and we can talk this together. Phoenix at Knoebels, one of your most recent characters.
I love that guy. Dude, I made that guy because I was like, oh, it's gonna be so funny if I can write him and my Ravine Flyer character to have beef. That would be so funny. And then I made the Phoenix character, and I'm like, wait, crap, I actually really like this character. I don't want to do that. I'm all, ooh, Phoenix, yay RF2.
And what I really like about your characters, you have a lot of, like, gender equality. You have really in-depth personalities and traits on them. They're not just, strict male or female or anything, but you have personality with them.
Well, in terms of LGBT, I usually don't really give them, like, sexualities for the most part, just because that's not really, like, they're roller coasters. I don't think they think too much about that.
Right.
But, like, I mean, my comic character, when I first designed that character, I didn't really have a gender in mind, and then I was like, after I finished, I'm like, oh, I don't know what gender this character is supposed to be, and to this day, I can't figure out. I just call them by they, them pronouns, because I can't figure it out. I don't know.
I have a direct reference to, I made with one of my other interviewees, James, and we talked about Thomas and Friends, the TV show, and there was a lot of flack back in the day for having way too many male characters. And they wanted to start putting more ethnic characters and more female characters. The whole Big World, Big Adventures, blah, blah, was a disaster. But I'm not going to get into the whole Thomas lore. But I like that in shows where there's gender equality and there's like, everything's unified together, or ethnic equality. That's something that's really needed in today's world where it's a lot of negativity.
Yeah, I would agree, especially because that almost ties into an idea that I have with a separate story of mine. It's basically my go-to cartoon pitch for if something ever happens in life where I'm able to pitch a cartoon to a network, where all of the characters in it are just supposed to be really diverse, and like all sorts of different things are represented in it, from like, different like ethnicities, different genders, different, like, some people have various disabilities and stuff, because like it's like I want everyone to feel represented in some form in some media,
Right. And every character I look at, it's just like Sea Dragon, it's a Viking. Wipeout is kind of reminiscent of like a 50s diner, or like a waitress or something. Or Alibaba is like a genie.
Yeah, that one was a lot inspired by the art specifically behind the ride, because there's like little dudes on the ride art, so I'm like, I'm gonna steal one of those guys and just turn them into a character.
So
I have way too many characters. I think I have like 1,300 something characters in total.
Jesus.
Yeah, I know. I have too many of them.
That I did not know myself.
That is also, when I say that I have that many, it's because I've been compiling them for as long as I've been alive. Like, I went through all of my old drawing notebooks that date back to like when I was in elementary school, and I'm like, oh, there's a character, so I just keep track of all of them.
No, but it's cool that you have everything conjoined together, and everyone connects with one another in some shape or form. I always look forward to your characters every week, and it's like, all right, what character are you going to make now? And then throws a curveball. It's like, oh, it's the defunct Whirlwind at Knoebels, that old crappy Vekoma looping coaster.
I didn't want to have just like 3 characters. I wanted to throw in another one. So I was like, what's their most notable defunct coaster?
And it was that piece of junk. Diverting back into the theme park aspect, just like in general, merch. When I visited your dorm, oh god, the merch was out the wazoo. Old maps, all sorts of decoratives. Like, you are known for like collecting things. And from me to you, I respect that.
To be fair, it looks like more than it is, because I just have a lot of stuff crammed into a tiny little dorm, so...
But I am happy with your collection, so going with that, what theme park merch are you most proud of owning and why? And do not say the RF2 plush, because that's exempt for that. That's custom made.
Technically, this one also is unofficial, but I like the RF2 train Lego set thing that I have, which... at least a little bit more official than my little character guy, but like, it was really fun to build, even if something went wrong in shipping and I didn't get the pieces for the lap bars, so it just has no lap bars, but I like that set a lot. I own a Ravine Flyer 2 shot glass, which is really funny to me, because I have no plans of ever drinking ever in my life, but I have the shot glass, so I think that's pretty funny.
I mean, I remember digging in your merch. You let me do that, and I found like old Six Flags maps and stuff.
Oh yeah, I have some old pamphlets. I think that one is for Six Flags Darien Lake. I think that was from 2005. So I wasn't even born yet. My parents just had that one, and I found it in a bunch of papers. I was like, "Can I have this?" And they were like, "Absolutely."
And I know your theme park merch collection will only grow. You're gonna definitely get more merch like me. You just gotta find it at the right place at the right time. Everybody has their own story when it comes to merch. When you get more merch, your room basically turns into a museum.
Oh yeah, I barely even have enough room on my one shelf for the stuff that I have there. I've got like a Maverick coaster scape. I've got the RF2 shot glass and Lego set. I got a Waldemir postcard for my birthday, and I have that in a little frame on my shelf.
I know you don't have a lot of coasters, but I know you're just starting out. So let's think regionally first, then we'll go nationally. At least within Erie area, what parks would you like to visit in the near future, and why? What is some of the parks on your bucket list, at least regionally?
Well, in terms of, I want to start with PA parks whenever I get into more exploring amusement parks and stuff, just because it's PA. I like PA, and there's a lot of really good parks here. So I think within the next couple of years, my bucket list parks mostly include like Hershey Park, obviously, because they have a ton of good stuff there. Canovels, because I want to do the RF2 Phoenix comparison and see if I'll officially be converted to the side of the Phoenix or not.
That's where I reside. Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. See, that's why I'm talking about too with my character. Like, if is me starting to like that character, that better not be a premonition for how I feel about the ride later on. But setting that aside, Dorney Park is another one that I really want to do. It'd be cool to do the two parks that are down more by, I can't remember whether it's Virginia or West Virginia, but Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, and Kings Dominion would be really cool to do.
I need to get to those.
And then Holiday World is another one I have my eyes on because Voyage, everyone calls RF2 mini Voyage, so I want to do actual Voyage. And then I also want to try to get to Cedar Point again, just so I can get those lost credits, and then also Kings Island, because it's right there.
I'm surprised you haven't said any New York parks either, because if you look at it regionally, those are the closest ones to us.
I don't give a lot of thoughts to those parks as much for whatever reason. I know, obviously, Darien Lake is right there, and that one will probably be one I do get to relatively soon.
But there's also the very close ones that I've been to that you've seen, like Niagara and Seabreeze.
That's true. I do have my eyes on Seabreeze. That looks like a cute little park.
And this is like a smaller Waldemar, basically.
I used to have family out in Rochester too, which makes me kind of like, damn, if I was into coasters sooner, I could have weaseled my way into going there.
You could have ridden Whirlwind before Whirlwind.
True, I could have.
My best advice, and this goes for anybody watching this podcast, start with the local parks that are within a couple hours away from you. You know, that's easy in a day's drive. Get familiar with those parks. I mean, you just got familiar with Kennywood this year. I mean, Cedar Point, that's a whole entity of itself, but like Kennywood, you're slowly filling in. So get used to your local regional parks first before traveling outwards. So, talking about this and art and everything about it, this is more of an optimistic question here, question 9. How do you see yourself taking art to the next level? You're going to school for art. You already have a pretty good portfolio with your coaster art and your comics and whatnot. Where do you see yourself taking art to the next level by 2028?
So that kind of goes on to two different levels because there's like my personal art and then there's like career art. With the career side, I definitely would like to at some point kind of find at least any sort of firm that might need like an in-house graphic designer, and they would just kind of come to me to whenever they needed anything, whether it's like a business card or like a website update, you know, like a pamphlet for an event. Anything really just in that zone, just because that stuff's really fun to do. I like design like that. And on my personal level, I think I would like to really get better at kind of, it's an artist thing when I say this, but some of my drawings have what's called same face syndrome, where if you take all of the details away from my characters and you would just overlay all of the shapes of their face on top of one another, it's like the same one every time. So I kind of would really like to work on kind of diversifying how their bodies look and getting better at anatomy too, just because it would be better to have them actually at least a little bit more different, be able to differentiate them more.
Ooh, but that'd be really awesome to see like how your coaster art progresses in the future.
Yeah, when I still remember, I was so nervous to post on my characters for the first time. I'm like, what if everybody's mean to me? And then I got all these crazy nice comments, and I'm like, oh my god, this is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the future of what content you may produce. So, last question. I usually do a whack-off question for everybody. Everyone has a different question, so you get ready for this. This has some backstory. We're band nerds, right? Performed or is performing in the best band in the land. With that in mind, you know, band nerds and whatnot, this is the most important question I've ever asked in this podcast. Is mayonnaise an instrument?
Absolutely. Oh my god, it absolutely is.
Okay, let's explain why mayonnaise can be classified as such.
Well, I mean, you could tap on the jar, you could like pour it out and it makes a disgusting little sound on the floor, and you could use that as a beat. It has so many possibilities.
But remember, horseradish isn't an instrument either. That's fine. Nobody has experience. And that'll conclude the podcast episode here. One final time, you want to tell them where they can find you so that you can but basically admire your awesome art and what new foundations you might make in the future.
Well, mostly I'm most active on Instagram, just at purple_shadows, the O in shadows being a 0, and the last S being a Z.
And yeah, so go follow her art. Very good stuff. And thank you for being in this podcast, and I really appreciate it. That is my perfect cue to get the hell out of here. My name is Jay. You're listening to Right on Track. And as they always say on my YouTube videos, Lux Eterna, Inamorata, from Zero. Good night.
Instrumental.